All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Today, we'll be talking about COVID-19 updates, the new COVID supplemental sick leave new on September 19th, and important changes on how workers' compensation is affected by a new law. My name is Jake. I'm part of the team here at CalWork Safety and HR. As always, our goal is to provide current information with the understanding that this can change or be modified at the legislation on a state or federal level. We continue to do our best to give you access to new webinars as we have updated information, so be sure to look out for our email updates. Before we begin, I would like to remind our attendees that you are in listen-only mode. If you have questions during this webinar, please feel free to use the chat box to ask your questions, and our speaker will try to answer as many as they can during the last 10-15 minutes of the webinar. I will be helping to facilitate your questions. Today's presentation should only be about 45 minutes. If we do not address your questions today, be sure to reach up and follow up with us after this webinar. Also, we would like to remind all attendees that if you wish to receive a copy of the slides, just send us a note at info@calworksafetyhr.com. We'll send it to you within 24 hours of the webinar. There is a lot of information to cover, so let's try to hold the questions until the end so we can see if they get addressed during the presentation. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome and introduce our special guest speaker, Brett R. Strauss. Brett R. Strauss, Esquire, is the Director of Compliance at Southland Data Processing in Upland, California. He has been with SDP since 2010 and specializes in consulting with employers to find cost-effective solutions to comply with California and federal employment regulations. Mr. Strauss is a graduate of the Eller College of Management at the University of Arizona and earned his JD from the University of Laverne College of Law. He is a proud member of the Labor and Employment section of the State Bar of California and a board member of the West Inland Empire Employer Advisory Council. Please welcome Brett R. Strauss.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, everybody at CalWork Safety and HR. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and I know that our companies have worked together for a while here, and we greatly appreciate all the work that you've done on behalf of our clients here at SDP. So let's kind of jump right in. What I wanted to just cover briefly, Jake mentioned some of the housekeeping items, but we will get you a copy of all the information today. I'm not sure if Jake's recording this or not, but I will make the slides available. And if you have any questions, you'll have my contact information at the end. Be glad to talk with each of you offline. A lot of the information here can be, company specific, dependent upon your situation. So if you don't feel comfortable sharing in front of the group, I completely understand. Feel free to just reach out afterwards. And again, Southland Data Processing is not a law firm. I am an attorney, but I do not offer legal advice to our clients. The presentation is intended for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon in reaching a conclusion in a particular area of law. The applicability of these principles, as I just mentioned, absolutely differ substantially depending upon your individual situation. Thank you, Jake, for introducing me. So what it is that I do, I'm the in-house counsel here at Southland Data Processing. We're primarily a payroll and compliance company, and we've got about 1,500 or so companies that we work with all across the United States, but primarily here in Southern California. And on top of all of the internal obligations that I have, I'm also accessible to our clients. And as I mentioned, I don't offer them legal advice. They don't hire me as their counsel, but I have the unique perspective of working with a lot of different types of clients, all different shapes and sizes. One employee, I think our largest client is about 3,000 employees, multi-state. So my phone's ringing all day, every day, and I get included on a bunch of emails and correspondence on a lot of these issues. So the perspective that I bring is just as somebody who has been doing this a long time, and somebody who's kind of seen, been inside some of these agencies, the EEOC, the Department of Labor, the EDD, inside the courtroom and been involved with some of these issues that are going on for employers here in California. So I like to just give you a lot of different scenarios and say, hey, look, these are some of the things that our clients are dealing with right now. So perhaps you can reach out to your team there at CalWorks Safety and HR and get some guidance. Maybe you need to reach out to your payroll provider and get some clarification so that you can avoid some of these issues before it's too late. Okay. Jumping into COVID, it's kind of started out, right, where we had March, April, May, and things were kind of just at a halt, right? We jumped into the PPP loan mix and try to navigate through all of that. The courts were kind of closed there for a while. Everything was on hold. That's not the case anymore. In the last 6 weeks, I've seen a lot of demand letters coming in, a lot of inquiries from different agencies, right? Personnel files and workers' comp, and there's a lot of changes going on. So I wanted to make sure that we talk about some of those things right now, okay? So the number one issue with COVID right now, the most common type of litigation that I've seen is all revolving around this remote work if you've got your employees working from home. Okay, there have not been a lot of COVID-related issues where employees have contracted it at the work site, and it's kind of gone that workers' comp route that we'll talk about in a second. It's most commonly happening where you've decided to shut your facility down a few months ago. You're maybe slowly gradually opening back up, but you still have a number of employees that are working from home. Right, so if you do have employees working from home, that's perfectly fine, but the documentation is absolutely crucial, right? So if you've got non-exempt hourly employees that are working from home, there needs to be documentation in place that kind of covers what your expectations are as an employer. So I see a lot of people that have kind of skipped some steps and made some mistakes here, and they're upset because, well, Brett, we open at 8 and I expect my employees to be, out of bed and, looking professionally and interacting with our clients at 8 o'clock. Okay, well, did we cover that? It might seem, kind of ridiculous that we have to have that conversation, but, sometimes employees have kind of taken some liberties to where they'll roll out of bed at 7:59 and, not really focused and ready to perform. All of the other wage and hour issues, for those non-exempt employees are still in play. You need to make sure that they understand, hey, this is an 8 to 5 job, right? You're going to take your break like you normally would if you're here at the workplace. You're going to take your lunch at your scheduled lunchtime, and you're going to be available for meetings and client work and whatever that might be, during business hours. Now that school has gone back in session, I know a lot of people are struggling, with balancing, school-age children and working from home, and it's kind of turning into a mess across the board. That's why there is that emergency childcare option, under the FFCRA. But let me give you an example of some of the issues that I've dealt with over the past few weeks, where employees are thinking because they work from home, they can kind of set their own schedule. Right, so it'll be like, well, Brett, my daughter has school from 8 to 11. She needs to be on Zoom with the teacher. So I'll log in. I'll be available for work from 7 to 8, and then I'm going to stop from 8 to 11, and then I'm going to get back on and do all this work here. And okay, is that reasonable for your business? Right? Some of our clients say no. We don't have clients that need help at 7 a.m. right? They're used to us being available at 10, right? So then it kind of goes back to the drawing board as you normally go through, a reasonable accommodation, right? That interactive process with your client and your employee to figure out, how can we structure this here to where it makes sense for, both employee and employer. Right? I think the great news is that emergency childcare can be used intermittently. So maybe what I've seen some clients do is say, hey, look, take the morning off, okay? 8 to 12, focus on your family obligations. We'll charge 4 hours to that emergency childcare under the FFCRA. And then from 12 to 5, we expect you to be fully engaged and ready to work from home. Okay. The key word is temporary here. I know a lot of people have kind of forgotten about this. Most of us have nice, beautiful workspaces. We pay a lot of money in rent. We've got long-term leases if we don't own our building, right? The last thing that we need is an employee, right? Maybe in January or February of next year, once we bring everybody back full time, they say, "Hey, Brett, I'm not coming back. I've been working from home now for a year. I've been doing great. I've hit all the metrics that you've given me. I'm comfortable. I'm staying home. My doctor is going to send you a letter that says I need an accommodation to work from home," and that's going to be very, very frustrating for you to deal with. And unless we have our good faith business justification to be able to shut that down, we're going to have to offer that accommodation. So I know a lot of people are panicking because they really didn't cover that 6 months ago when this first started. But I think that there's still time to do that now. So what we do internally here at SDP, we have a meeting once a month. We have our staff meeting, and it kind of seems redundant, but we have a work from home agreement that we renew each month. So all right, guys, it's October 15th. It looks like the county of San Bernardino, where our office is located, it looks like we're still in stage 2. We're going to renew the work from home agreement one more month, and we'll meet back on November the 15th to check back in and see how things are going. I think that just kind of covers your bases there, so that way you don't get yourself stuck in a position where you have employees that are going to try to use this as a long-term setup moving forward. Okay. Lastly, another thing, a handful of the complaints that I've seen over the last few months are geared towards reimbursable expenses under Labor Code Section 2802. Huge issue, often overlooked, right? So 2802 has been the law as long as I can remember when it comes to reimbursable expenses, right? In an absent COVID environment, right? If we are expecting employees to use personal devices on behalf of the business, there needs to be a reimbursement, right? So if we have drivers or salespeople and we expect them to clock in and clock out from their phone, right? Or they're using the phone to make sales calls on behalf of the company, then there needs to be a reimbursement for that, right? Now, obviously, if you provide the technology, if you're providing them the phone or you're providing them a tablet or something like that, then that requirement goes away. But in a work from home arrangement, if I'm working from home, if SDP expects me to be at home using my own internet and my own printer and my ink and all those things, then that's going to fall under 2802, and there needs to be a reimbursement for those employees. Okay. People ask me, well, how much? What do I do? The good thing is that there's really not a set dollar amount. It's, just a reasonable amount depending on the usage of the employee, right? We should be reimbursing actual expenses. So, you just have to kind of make that determination. If you've got people that are just maybe answering a few calls and some emails, I've got some clients that are doing, $25 a month. We've got clients that are doing $100 a month because they're on the phones and they're expecting the employees to print things out and use a lot of their resources at home. So it really just kind of depends on what you think is fair, how much of their own resources are your employees using. Okay. All right, let's move on here to the supplemental sick leave that was just enacted, as Jake mentioned a few weeks ago, towards the end of September. Now I'm going to give you my kind of Cliff Notes version on this here. This caused a lot of confusion for our clients. So back in April 1st was the effective date of the FFCRA, right? When we have the emergency paid sick leave, the caregiving leave, as well as the child care for parents of school-age children that where the schools were closed. Okay, but when that was a federal law. So when that law was enacted back then,